Welcome to another episode of Sneaks Rhymes in Life. I am your host, Lionel McDonald. So, this one has been weighing on my mind for a hot minute. Let's just adjust the camera so we write. Oh, man. So, been thinking about doing this episode for a little bit now. And thank you for everyone that's listening on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, for those that are checking it out on YouTube. Um, yeah, this one has been weighing on my mind for a hot minute, and that is Little Brother. Now, I would tell you, I'm not the biggest Little Brother fan, but I definitely have got to understand them more, um, follow them more as time has passed. Um, and This group's something else. Now, I think my first introduction to Little Brother, and for those that don't know, Little Brother is a rap group. Came out in the early 2000s and really kind of redefined how hip hop sounded. This was a group that sounded like almost a blast from the past, a group from like a decade earlier. This is Tribe Called Quest, um, Diggable Planet, a few years back, Black Star. Like, this was the vibes that we were getting from Little Brother. Now, this is where I first got introduced to Little Brother. It's actually not even the first album, it's the second album, The Minstrel Show. An album that was so unique in how it was done. Did rub some people the wrong way, but it ultimately became like an underground classic. It just never had the commercial success that many people thought, but many people absolutely love the album. My friend Hannah O'Flynn, that lives in the U.S., big basketball name, she loves the album. One of my best friends, Nick Healing, along with his cousin Michael Woodrow, they love the album. Those two guys specifically put me on to Little Brother. But they something else. And so as I started to do some research, and I don't know if it was research, it's just like I just kind of got back into Little Brother mode and was really listening to them and their music. But I think it really started with me just listening to how amazing Ninth Wonder is and my appreciation for his skill and his talent and just so many things that he's done. And again, I hold the Minstrel Show in the highest regard. This is probably easily for me a top 25 album. But as I started to crank things back, and you see the Minstrel Show T-shirt in the back, I really started to crank things back. And it's just like, why don't we just learn like a little bit more about this group and what came to be? Because really, what also sparked this is they came out of the blue and says that they are going to do a tour. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. These guys, and let me count the dates. That's looks like 8 dates. Across the US. Unfortunately, it's not coming to Canada or Toronto, but needless to say, they definitely got my interest. And really just trying to understand this group, and in its current form, it isn't the same as the group that I heard when I heard the Minstrel Show. So I started to do a little bit of research and a little bit of understanding, and we're going to get into all this. And again, like, this episode is so complicated because of the twists and turns of this group and where they're at and where they've been going. It's really hard to say where they're at. What we do know, they're not together. As we know, is their true form. Crisis is still around in some form, but really the group is Fonte, Big Pooh, and Ninth Wonder. That is the original group. That is the group that we got when we got The Listening. And that was an album that came out in 2003 to much critical acclaim. You know, the first track we got, I think it was like in 2001, which was Speed. And then we proceeded to get some other singles that came off that album. And if I kind of just look at my screen here, what was the next single that came out when Little Brother was dropping? Anyways, it will come back to me in a second. The Way We Do was the next one. You know, the Get Up and on the Way was the kind of the other first track that was out, and we'll get into their history and everything like that. But they're doing a tour, an 8-city tour, ending in late October 24th specifically, in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, which is where they're from. Show is apparently almost sold out as I just looked it up. But again, as I said, the group is not the same in its physical form. What's happened? It happened, you know, almost 15 years ago, if you can believe, but Ninth Wonder really is not part of the group. Really. It's almost 20 years ago since Ninth Wonder really is not part of the group. He was kind of on his ways out. Literally, did I know before doing research, when the Minstrel Show, he was there, he was putting it together, but he wasn't a part of it. So he wasn't a part of like the promotion or the tour to Europe or many things. So a lot of things kind of came to be. The tour got me thinking about things. Now there is a Ninth Wonder show with Scratch Bastard, or Scratch Bastard, excuse me, July 26th and 27th in Toronto. DJ Premier will be there. They're both performing on the Saturday. It's a show we got to be at. I'm going to be away, so I'm going to miss it. But all my fellow hip-hop heads, you got to try and be at this show. But yeah, let's get into it. Like, what happened to Little Brother? And this is kind of the question that spawned for me. What happened to Little Brother? Why are they not together? Why are they not the amazing group together and riding this out? You know, we had an album that came out in 2019. The Lord May Watch. What happened? Why didn't we get a tour? COVID happened. That's what happened. Why we didn't get a tour. So as I did more research, there was a documentary that they did that came out in 2023 by the same title, The Lord May Watch, but also Ninth Wonder did his own documentary, and he didn't do it specifically. Another individual went and did a documentary, and literally, essentially, after a Pete Rock and DJ Premier DJ show, Ninth Wonder was there, and he approached him and asked Patrick Duhit, that's really the real name of Ninth Wonder. Can I follow you around for a year and kind of tell your story? So that is how we got to hearing more about Ninth Wonder and his career and really his backstory. And again, like, he's just done so much music, you know, Dream Merchant 1, 2, The Wonder Years, you know, Zion, like literally up to Zion 10. Then, you know, obviously he did stuff with Little Brother, The Listening, The Minstrel Show, and then Dinner Party, amongst other things, and collaboration things. He's done things with Murs. He's done 3 albums with Buckshot, which are some of my favorite Ninth Wonder projects. He's done things with Rhapsody. He's done things, obviously, with Jay-Z on The Threat that was on the Black album. He's done things with Sky Zoo. So, like, the catalog is absolutely incredible. This guy just cooks and comes together and makes beats, but we're going to talk about the story of this. And I don't even know if I get it done in one episode. We're going to do our best to just kind of talk about the story and what has happened, but let's get into it. So, hey, told you the 3 members: Rapper Pooh, Phonte, Ninth Wonder. So this is a rap group that essentially came to us in the early 2000s. And they said, I want to say 2000, 2001. That's when we got Speed among some of the other tracks. So, The Listening is the album that I've been listening to heavily, funny by the name. And what's the story behind? How did this kind of come to be? So, Rapper Pooh, Thomas Jones, Fonte Coleman, and Pat Duhit are all met together in 1998 as they enrolled in North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina, an HBCU. And the group began as a trio. The group also was known as part of a hip hop collective called the Justice League that included many other people. Many artists started to hear about the buzz about them in North Carolina, and really they made their debut, and again, as I said, in 2021 with this track called Speed. It's one of my favorite songs from The Listening, and they really talked about how the song was created and some of the work that they had done, and how Ninth Wonder was creating the beats. Now, I don't want to spoil it. I'm going to hold this out for a second. So they continued their work locally in Raleigh, North Carolina. They actually did this not in a studio, but in a bedroom. They eventually were signed to an independent label, ABB Records, and in 2002, they cut a 7-inch single called Atari 2600, which centered around video games. In 2023, they released the album The Listening, and this got national recognition, particularly by Ninth Wonder, based on the production. Now, it was kind of holding out. So Fruity Loops was a program that was on a PC that you could use to rearrange and take snippets of different things. Ninth Wonder became the master of this program, and this is how he created. There was no SB 2600. There was no pads. There was no turntables for the most part. He all did this, the production for The Listening, on this one PC. It's unbelievable. The mic is probably better, is as good as the mic that I use to record this podcast, which is it's a very basic mic. So that they created such quality and such a pure album is absolutely incredible what these trio was able to create. Ultimately they got a ton of national recognition. People were buzzing, from Black Star to The Roots to this inspired Drake. This inspired artists like J. Cole, which is from North Carolina. Jay Dilla is shown in a picture from the documentary holding The Listening. This is like a revolutionary album. This is like a throwback to the early 90s, to like how you felt when you heard Rebirth of Slick or Rebirth of Cool from Diggable Planets, or how you felt when you heard Electric Relaxation from A Tribe Called Quest, or when you heard Break of Dawn from De La Soul, or when you heard anything from Jay Dilla. This was an absolute underground classic. Then The Source got a hold of it. The Source rated this 4 to 5 mics, and 4 to 5 mics in any regard is an amazing accomplishment all on its own. So this group was on its way. There was some touring. They ultimately hooked up with our favorite group from Oakland. And there's a lot of groups from Oakland, but my group from Oakland is Hieroglyphics. So think of that's Dell. That's obviously Pep Love, but it's Souls of Mischief. So they went on tour. they were the opening act um, for Hyro on this tour, and it was a movement. People got to see them, and I think Ninth Wonder was out there for a period of time, and then he wasn't on the tour, and this is kind of started some of the beginning of the end. 2025, they definitely continue to work. They worked on some other project, more of a mixtape. I See You Now was a track that featured Consequence and Kanye. And Kanye, again, was a big influence by what they had created. So the second album was The Minstrel Show, released in September of 2025. This album, this is the one. And the concept for the album is top notch. Like, you may think that you don't need a whole bunch of skits, but this helped tell an incredible story. And it was just totally different than present day rap. And this is what I absolutely love about this album. But they needed a single. The song that they opened many shows was Loving It. And this featured Joe Scudda. This has became the first single off the album. There were a lot of things that were obviously starting to now transpire. At this time, Ninth Wonder had gotten noticed by many people in the hip hop community, including Jay-Z and Destiny's Child and Mary J. Blige, and this ultimately leads to him getting a Grammy. So we're going to get into a whole Ninth Wonder chapter in a second. But bad communication, amongst other things, really led to challenges within the group. This group, again, created some amazing projects. Again, we had The Listening we've already talked about. We're now at The Minstrel Show. But, this is some thoughtful and soulful hip hop that we had on our hands. The cultural influence that this group had is influenced so many people, from modern day artists, like I said, Doja Cat, J. Cole, and Drake, to Tribe Called Quest and Talib Kweli and The Roots and so many other people, Kendrick included. But what ended up happening over this period is that it was bad communication, amongst other things, that kind of led to the challenges of this group. They didn't communicate very well. They were immature. Phonte used to always just say what's on his mind. Conversely, Ninth really kept a lot of things close to the chest and close to the vest, and just really didn't share how he was feeling and share what he felt it was a priority. And, I know, now that we know that when you have a famous producer as part of the group, he's going to go and do other things and going to be pulled in different directions. It happened with Pete Rock. It happened with DJ Premier. It's happened obviously with Jay Dilla, like, he was with Slum Village. So these things are going to happen, but they got to kind of continue to work and flow and find ways to work together. But things never happened the way that it did, and ultimately Ninth Wonder wasn't even on the tour. He wasn't on the back end of the tour, and communication became very tough for the group. And ultimately, Ninth, and from what we gathered, Ninth and Phonte had tried to talk about things and work things out, but there was definitely a rift between Big Pooh and Ninth, and they've never really talked in almost like 20 years now. And with the exception of the Lord May Watch, when they were talking about doing a tour before COVID shut everything down, it just never happened the way that they thought it was going to happen. So Minstrel Show was out. There was some critical acclaim. There's a lot of different things that were out there. There was even beef with Young Jeezy, because Young Jeezy was doing this drug rap, and they were just not about that thing. And then ultimately they kind of resolved that beef. But then when they came to make the third album, this is the second album now that they're signed now to Atlantic, previously on, I think, ABB Records. the group announced that Ninth Wonder was no longer part of the group. Creative differences, amongst other things, were some of the reasons that this group decided to go their separate ways. Hard to believe that some group or a group that had things so good would let things fall apart just from bad communication, different priorities, amongst other things. But that's kind of what happened. And ultimately, Pooh and Fonte continued. We got the third album. I think I got it here somewhere. No, this is Left Back. Get Back was the next one. Good Clothes is my joint off that album. But after they announced that Ninth Wonder was not part of the group, there were some ill feelings, but there were some challenges with the label. They wanted to move on from Atlantic because they didn't think they did a really good job from the job with the minstrel show. Also, then there was pressure because there was a lot of people when they were, particularly in Europe, when they went to go promote the minstrel show. Where is Ninth Wonder? We signed to have Ninth Wonder because that is Little Brother. It's 3 people, not 2. It's almost like they got blacklisted. They really tried to do their best to carry on the legacy with just the 2 of them, but people were not hearing it. They wanted Ninth Wonder as part of the group. That's what they expected, and they didn't get that. They had somebody else. So 2007, I think it's October of 2020 or October of 2007. Get Back is the third album. No major airplay. Again, Good Clothes is one of my favorite songs. It did rank, I think, 89 on the top 200 Billboard chart. It had several songs. It had Lil Wayne actually makes an appearance. And then they did tour after that with Dilated Peoples and Evidence. But again, they became completely independent artists with the fallout. There was no major airplay, and this kind of set this group spiraling out of the spotlight. From Get Back to the mid 2008s, they did a mixtape, Justice for All, mixed with DJ Mike Boogie, who took over the production after Ninth Wonder had departed. When we kind of think about things, it was an official release. It featured 5 songs. The mastering, it was good, and I do like it. It just wasn't Ninth. So then this led to a rift between Big Pooh and Fonte. They didn't see eye to eye. How do we get back on track? And ultimately, they started doing their own solo stuff. Fonte started collaborating with Nicolay from the Netherlands on this project called Foreign Exchange. Did ultimately the debut release called Convicted, and then they just started doing other things. Pooh wanted to do his own solo album, and hey, Pooh took a lot of flack being, it's even on the minstrel show that he's the wackest in the group, but as time progressed, he got better and better, and now has been able to hold his own. And then Ninth Wonder has obviously gone his way. The amazing story of him, getting in contact with many people in the hip hop world, and I've already mentioned kind of Destiny Child, Green Lantern, amongst others. And there's such an appreciation. So Young Guru, who's the engineer for Jay-Z, ultimately hears Ninth Wonder and says, hey, you got to play something for Jay. Jay's doing his final album. You got to get with Jay and see what's up. And he ends up playing like 29 beats for Ninth Wonder. Or Ninth Wonder plays it for Jay-Z, and Jay-Z plays like a poker face, as they say in the Wonder Year, which is the documentary for Ninth Wonder, as they follow him around for a year. And then Jay-Z kind of plays a poker face the first two tracks, and then third one, the beats start hitting one after another, and Jay-Z is just absolutely loving it. So I got to work with this guy. Jay-Z then says, I have an idea. This is like a flip of an R. Kelly thing. Take this home and could you put it together? And then Ninth is like, hold on. And Ninth continues to work in the studio, and a little of this and a little of that. And 20 minutes later, he hands the headphones to Young Guru, and Young Guru, literally his eyes jump out of his head and say, this is it. Gives it to Jay, and that is the beat that we have for Threats. Now, if people don't remember, because it was like 22 years ago, what's the whole big thing about the Black Album? The Black Album was supposed to be Jay-Z's last album. He handpicked producers from Pharrell to Ninth Wonder to Timberland. Dirt Off Your Shoulder is the one that Timbo did, and then when I remember Hov scene, there's a video, classic video when Timbo plays the beat for him. But it, like, there were so many producers that had submitted beats. DJ Premier didn't even end up on the album. But we end up getting to the point of Ninth Wonder creating this beat, Threats, and it actually, Ninth Wonder's career absolutely took off. So we're going to come back to a whole Ninth Wonder story. Let's just continue right now with Little Brother. So May 28th, and I think during an interview, Big Pooh's doing an interview with hiphopgame.com, and he hints that Little Brother may never be back together. They just could not see eye to eye, and they were really focused on working on their personal projects. In June of 2009, Phonte, says like there's another album, and this is the album here, Left Back. This is supposed to be the final studio album between the two. And hey, at this time, even Phonte and Ninth Wonder were going back and forth on Twitter. And the concern was there was a song called Star that Ninth Wonder had produced that was unreleased that ended up on Left Back, and this rubbed Ninth Wonder the wrong way. And it's funny that Ninth Wonder had so much to say on Twitter, but they couldn't talk as men, and maybe we would still have the group as we knew today. Shortly after release, it got announced that with literally no promotion and no single, that after, and I think Big Pooh is the one that says this, after thinking about the situation, realized that it's probably in the best interest that we go our separate ways, and it was tough to swallow, because we've seen in the world of hip hop way too often, EPMD, A Tribe Called Quest, let's name another one, Brand Nubian, amongst others, great groups, P-Rock and CL Smooth, great groups that ultimately go their separate way. It's not good for hip hop. It's good for the artists, and I think we always have to remember that they're artists, and art flows in many different ways, but sometimes you got to go your own way and do your own thing. Phonte adds to this and saying that, hey, friends, they're doing business. We got to decide. Is it a business relationship? Is it a friendship? Can we continue to do both? And I think Phonte really wanted to be friends, so it's best that they disbanded the group. So crazy to think that these guys went their separate way, and this was the end of Little Brother. And we didn't hear from Little Brother for literally 9 years. 9 very long years. And we saw so much different kinds of music come out in that 9-year period. But after a while, and I think it really was what struck home, and it came out in the documentary, The Lord May Watch. You got to watch it if you haven't seen it. I believe Pooh, but actually Fonte and Pooh talk about it, was the death of Phife Dawg. And these guys absolutely idolized Tribe Called Quest. And when Phife Dawg died in 2016, they hadn't spoken in 5 years. And Pooh sent a message to Fonte, just sharing love and appreciation, and led to a phone call, and they spoke for several hours. And before releasing any music, it was important that they just get to know each other as friends. So over the next 3 years, a lot of things that happened between the two of them was just talking, just hanging out, just catching up with family, just trying to get to know one another again after being so close for so long, and then having this gap. Fonte, Pooh, and Ninth Wonder did reunite on stage for the first time in 11 years in their hometown during the 2008 Art of Cool Festival. No one knew that it was happening. The reunion is a result of Royce da 5'9" unable to attend. Got a last minute phone call to Fonte, and instead of Royce, who couldn't make it, he called Big Pooh and Ninth, and to collaborate with him. The group had not performed in over a decade, but it was like riding a bike, as I think they say. Say it again, loving it, love the way you do, dreams. Both artists felt the energy and the good omen, and after leaving the stage, they had something special. Following this, Fonte invited Pooh to a barbecue where they continued to talk about their collaboration. 2019 in May, the group returned with a announcement of new music that would happen later in the year. They were on the Hopscotch Festival, September 7, 2019, in Raleigh, North Carolina. So again, they did a lot of things at home. Ultimately, this led to them talking about doing another project. And this is a few weeks later. They also released that Ninth Wonder, they would be working on a project, but Ninth Wonder would not be part of it. The dust had not settled. They even did the documentary, Lord May Watch, and Ninth Wonder just refused to be part of the comment. And to Ninth his own, we're going to give Ninth Wonder a shine and his side of things in a second, from at least what we personally understand. So, August 19th, 2019, is announced that Little Brother is releasing a new album, The Lord May Watch, which was released the following day on the 20th. Critical acclaim that these guys got back in the booth from artists, record execs, true fans, critics. Thoroughly loved the project. It's not the minstrel show. It's not the listening, but it had no production from Ninth Wonder. They worked with Knots, Crisis, and Black Milk. The album was in complete single to many artists, did not knowing that Little Brother was even working on anything. So it came as a true surprise and shock. DJ Peter Rosenberg discussed one of the remarkable people that had been part of the family, Percy Miracles, who had passed away. It was a tribute, like Phife Dawg, and it was pretty special that they were able to tie this in to the album. So Little Brother truly made a mark on many of us. They were going to do a tour in 2020 or 2020, and COVID happened, shut everything down. So time has passed. Things have lightened the load, lightened in the world in some regards, and got way heavier with all the war that we're seeing everywhere. So let's just think about the discography that we have. We got The Listening in 2003, The Minstrel Show in 2005, Get Back in 2007, Left Back in 2010, and The Lord May Watch is the last one. April which brings us now full circle before we go into the Ninth Wonder chapter. April 2025, they announced that there is a show called The Curtain Call. So this means that Little Brother is going on tour, the final tour. And that breaks my heart that this is now the final tour. They're older, they're in the late 40s, and I get it. So starting May 24th was they already done one show, but there's 8 remaining shows as I record this podcast on the 19th, Juneteenth, in June of 2025, finishing at a final show in North Carolina. So we got 5 albums out of them. Lord May Watch was the last album. It's the last album that we'll get from these guys. Not to say that they won't do individual things, personal things, but a lot of it's all ties in terms of how they feel, how they fell apart, and how they got back together, all in the documentary, The Lord May Watch. 5 years in the making. They started making it in 2018. It came out in 2023. So pretty amazing and pretty special. But yeah, there's one member kind of wasn't around for a lot of it, but he was busy doing his own thing. And that would be the incredible super producer, in my eyes, the second best producer that I've ever heard. And that is talking about Jay Dilla, Dr. Dre, Pete Rock, amongst others, Eric Sermon, Q-Tip, Havoc. This is my second favorite, is Ninth Wonder. DJ Premier, and then Ninth Wonder. Kanye, we got to give Ye some love. Incredible producer. So, hey, I feel a connection to Ninth Wonder because we're very close to being the same age. We're only like 8 months apart in terms of year of birth. He was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. As I mentioned, North Carolina Central University and HBCU is where he ended up meeting Phonte and Pooh. He is now a teacher, which is amazing to see. And when the documentary Start the Wonder Year, they talk about it, that he's now a teacher and teaching people about music. I think it's just so amazing. He teaches at both Duke, in collaboration with Professor Mark Anthony Neal, and at his alma mater, North Carolina Central University. So his career began, again, in North Carolina. He's collaborated with some of the most amazing artists, from underground people like Jean Grey, to celebrities like Rhapsody, Wale, Talib Kweli, Buckshot, Murs, Destiny's Child, Jay-Z, amongst others, Eric Badu, and obviously Mary J. Blige. So his first breakthrough came through on The Listening. But one thing cool before The Listening even came out is he did an underground tape, a mixtape called God's Stepson. This created significant attention, and it's cool. He even put himself on the cover as part of God's Stepson. Ninth Wonder didn't create the mix, but he definitely used a variety of tools to create this incredible project in 2022. And this was like the tipping point. He got essentially, he took Godson and spun it back and did all the tracks in its order. Get Down, The Cross, Made You Look, Last Real Nigga Alive, Hey Nas, I Can, Book of Rhymes, the NYC version of Thug's Mansion, Mastermind, Warrior Song, Revolutionary Warfare, and even did an ether that was from Stillmatic. Countless samples, and it was just so creative in how he put this thing together. We call this like a homemade remix album, much like we've gotten for the Black Album. We got the Gray Album, we got the White Album. Like, we just got so many versions of that album, but totally amazing what Ninth Wonder was able to create And this really created some buzz for him. When we got to listening, and again, Fruity Loops was the program that he used, but he was like a groundbreaking producer because he is the first to produce an album off a PC. No pads, no SB1200s, none of that. He used a computer like you would use a Mac. And this is like where we are in 2025. People don't play instruments. Now, he does, but people, there's a story actually of him going to Jazzy Jeff's house, and Jazzy Jeff has all these instruments. He's got keyboards on the wall, literally almost on the ceiling, and all Ninth Wonder has his laptop, and that's all he needed to kind of generate and create his magic. So the listening was the breakthrough. Ultimately, being born in North Carolina, was really inspired by his sister, amongst other people. And again, the generation that we have today, Doja Cat, Kendrick, Drake, J. Cole, all inspired by Ninth Wonder. So Ninth Wonder is something special, The Minstrel Show and Speed were some of the albums that really catapulted him forward. And I think this really helped people take note of Ninth Wonder and who he was and what he was all about. But as touring and other things kind of started to happen, new avenues started to open for Ninth Wonder. As I mentioned, the Young Guru story, Jay-Z wanted him on the Black Album and gave him the song The Threat after many things that I've already kind of explained in terms of playing a whole bunch of beats, 29 to be exact. And then Jay-Z has a concept, Ninth Wonder makes it in 20 minutes, and that is the beat that we got for Threat. And it's maybe the best song on, at least one of the best songs that is on the Black Album. This led ultimately, when he was doing The Threat in the studio, he was fully aware of the relationship that was happening because Beyonce was sitting in the room. So 2004, this led to Destiny Child, him working on tracks, and he worked on 2 tracks, Girl and Is She the Reason, plus a bonus track, Game Over. And so many things kind of transpired, particularly on the solo front. And I kind of landed Dream Merchant 1, 2, The Wonder Year. And this guy is just pumping up beats. Zion 1 to 10. Just so much music that he was able to create. And then obviously, some of my favorite music is done by Ninth Wonder and Buckshot. There's a great scene within the Wonder Year documentary of him and Buckshot working together, and I want to say it's on The Formula, could be on The Solution, but they ultimately created 3 albums together on top of a couple albums with Murs. So they had The Chemistry, The Formula, and The Solution. Those are the 3 albums that were created by Ninth and Buckshot, amongst all these other things. Cloud 9 he did with Sky Zoo, Classes in Session he did with Pete Rock, Death of a Pop Star with David Banner, Indy 500 with Talib Kweli. So just a catalog of music. And what's amazing about Ninth Wonder is his mindset and how he wants to create music that you'll remember, that moves your soul. He wants to make music like electric relaxation. He's just essentially, I think the word or phrase he uses is chasing the feeling that you get when you heard The Blast for the first time, the feeling that you get when you heard Mad Ism or Who Got the Props. That is the feeling that he's chasing every single time he makes a beat. Some days pours out 20 beats. Other days pours out more. Other days doesn't pour out anything. But he looks for what I love to call it's never balance. Balance is an irregular term and a term that is unrealistic. The term that he's looking for is harmony. How does his career, so his family can eat and he can do the things how does that balance or work through a harmony, which is the correct word? How does that work in conjunction? Work, his career, other interests, his immediate family, and friends that he has, that he works with. And it's amazing that there was like a star-studded cast that all spoke in the Wonder Year. You know, Method Man was in it. DJ Premier, Alchemist, him and Alchemist sitting in a hotel room just cooking beats. Rhapsody in the studio just watching and just like snapping necks on some of the things that Ninth Wonder was. Illmind and Eric G had some great words that they shared about Ninth Wonder. One of the greatest producers we've ever seen. And now, you know, now that he's a teacher and has time to reflect, priorities have always changed. Priorities, I think, in that era when Little Brother was at their high with the listening and then the minstrel show and then the deterioration of group. They didn't really talk. They didn't communicate. They found ways not to do things that grown men should be doing. And this is the reasons that the group fell apart. Priorities happen. And, you know, Ninth Wonder was the one that had a child at 20 years old. And no man really is ready to have a child at 20. But you really find ways to try and navigate it. And he was always going to be pulled in a different direction. He was also being pulled in different directions because his career was absolutely taking off because everyone and their mother in the hip hop world wanted to work with him. So it's not ideal that we had Little Brother fall apart. And I don't know what the underlying tones are in 2025, why Ninth Wonder doesn't want to be at some of these final shows. And I have fingers crossed that it will ultimately happen, that he will decide the last show in North Carolina, that he'll show up and do the last Little Brother show. But people are just in different spots and in different places. And really, that might be a pipe dream. I really don't know if that will ever happen. And does it really need to happen? Pooh and Fonte have gone their way. Fonte is one of the best lyricists and most appreciated he's your favorite MC's top 5 favorite MC. And you just have to give him a ton of credit. For a long time, he kind of kept the group together. Eventually, we got to a point that the powers that be the group didn't want to be together. So they had to move on. We're grateful now for all the things that have happened and all the growing that has happened, that Pooh and Fonte have decided to get back together. And now we have a Little Brother tour. Although I wish we was bigger, we know that we could have them be literally everywhere. And I don't know if we'll ever really understand the truth of why the group fell apart. But it pains many of us, but I think we have to relish that these are human beings. They're not robots. They're just humans. And humans make mistakes. Humans regret things after time. And sometimes time doesn't heal all wounds. And we would love to have Little Brother back, but I think we have to enjoy what we have. And I tell you about the minstrel show. I want to tell you it was like 2006 when I saw Little Brother for the very first time. and saw them in Toronto, west end of the city, downtown, and they were absolutely incredible. And yeah, I don't know if I'll get a chance to see them again, but I think the journey of all of this that has taken me to understand the problems, to dive deeper into their careers, to kind of put lineage and timelines all together on things that have happened has been a special journey for me. Um, it also brought everything full circle because I really have taken in the listening heavy in the last month. And it's, I don't know if I have words for it. Like, the production is absolutely incredible. Fonte with Big Pooh as a compliment is incredible. I just so enjoy that album. The lyrics are a little raw, something that I can play in front of my daughter, but I would tell you that the album is incredibly special. But that's Little Brother. That's some of the reasons, that's some of the things that all of these artists have gone on to do. So if you get a chance to see any one of the dates, and maybe I'll read them out to you. The remaining concert dates that Little Brother will be on. So starting in New York, Brooklyn, October 1st, Washington, D.C., October 2nd, or August 2nd. So, let's go back to the beginning. August 1st, Brooklyn, New York. August 2nd, D.C. August 8th, Philly. August 9th, Atlanta. September 13th, Chicago. September 19th, Seattle. September 20th, Los Angeles, California. And last but not least, Lincoln Theater, Raleigh, North Carolina, United States of America will be the final show for Little Brother. But that's it. We spit. Wow, geez, I just looked at the time. 47 minutes and 23 seconds talking everything Little Brother. So, appreciate your time. Appreciate you, all of you listening. This is my Little Brother thoughts, with thoughts on Ninth Wonder as well. Maybe we'll have to do a second one. Maybe we'll have to get friends to come on and give their own special recollection. So, Nick, Mike, Hannah, amongst many others. Maybe we'll have to get you all on and chop it up a little bit, but Little Brother is something special. So that's what we got. We got Ninth and Little Brother feature telling the story of three incredible artists and how they found their way together, apart, and a couple of them found their way back together. This is Sneaks Rhymes and Life. We out.